that's a thing that happens on yours now.
Well, it's because I don't have I haven't
Yeah.
selected. I deselected whatever was selected for the window.
Well, yeah, but mine never did that before, and then it recently started. I guess a new update is like, hey, you sure you don't want that? And
yeah.
So yeah, sorry.
It's okay. I just, All right.
So it's me.
You're gonna start us off.
Yes. Sorry. Greetings from Cybertron. This is SoundJack here with another episode of SoundJack's Rambles, and today I'm joined by Alyssa.
Hi.
And we are here to talk about Season 3 of a series of unfortunate events and also do the wrap-up to the series since this was the last season.
Yup. It was. Twas the last season.
Yes. If you want to hear more about our thoughts about the other two seasons, go check out the previous episodes of the podcast that featured those.
Yep.
Because we've already discussed that there. But yeah, now it's time to talk about everything that led up to the end.
Yep. So I think we should start talking about characters, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you like? Like we met a lot of new characters. Mm-hmm. We did meet a lot. We did also re-encounter some old people from previous seasons.
A lot. Honestly.
A lot of characters. There were a lot of characters in the series that return. Strangely enough, Jacqueline doesn't return, actually. I think she's the only recurring character who doesn't show up in the last season.
Didn't she die?
She became the Duchess of Winnipeg.
Oh, yeah. Wait.
She went into hiding, I think.
Okay.
I mean, if she did die, I forget.
Okay, I got confused because I thought she ended up being the substitute carnival lady.
The Madame Lulu?
Yeah.
Oh, she might have.
Yeah.
But the carnival burned down, so she can't be Madame Lulu anymore.
Oh, yeah, but she died because she was thrown into the tiger pit.
No, that's Olivia Caliban.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's not.
That's the one from
Jacqueline's the secretary.
Yeah, but yeah, I got them confused because because Jacques got Olivia involved, and then she substituted when I guess Kit was taking care of the circus. She left to find the sugar bowl. Olivia stepped in. Okay. Yes. Jeez. Okay, I'm sorry. There's a lot that happened.
A lot happened.
I got things confused.
Happened. So, basically, Jacqueline, the secretary, I believe, is the only character who doesn't make an appearance that would have reappeared, who is an important character in early books. Yeah. She became the Duchess of Winnipeg, which is, as you can probably guess, a fake title because Winnipeg does not have a duchess.
Oh, well, we didn't have the guy at the lumber mill reappear.
Sir.
Yeah.
And his partner Charles. Yeah, they didn't reappear. Which is also strange because they actually did show up in the last book. Oh, not the last book. In the penultimate peril. Yeah. I believe instead of meeting up with Mr. Poe, they met up Sunny met up with the lumber mill folks.
Okay. But they were mentioned because crap.
Jerome.
Yeah, Jerome made mention of meeting his boyfriend, but he's busy with his lumber mill.
Yeah. He said that in a really suggestive way that I'm not sure I'm happy about.
Oh, and then also the teacher from Proof Rock Prep that got arrested at...
for robbing the bank.
Yeah.
Which she pulled off because Mr. Poe is absolutely...
Well, she still appeared in the season. Because...
She did, yeah. She robbed Mr. Poe.
Yeah.
Because last season... Mr. Poe drove back from the hinterlands with her in her car, in his car, and he showed her around, and then she robbed him. Which, I mean, Mr. Poe is absolutely useless, so... Yeah. You know.
Absolutely. But a couple new characters that we got introduced to at the start of the season were the man with a beard but no hair, and the woman with hair but no beard.
Yep. They're the big bads, if you will. They're the people who are even worse than Count Olaf and are kind of Count Olaf's parental figures, but they are just like real big butts, and
also really big into fire.
Yes, they're really big into fire.
Really, really big into fire.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say,
yeah,
I'm surprised they didn't play more of a role in the end.
Yeah.
Because we got introduced to them and they had their own scheme.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was going to be one of those stories that, like, okay, we're following this villain for a while, but then we're like, oh no, there's this even bigger, badder villain.
Right.
And then the focus shifts to them while the primary villain becomes kind of like one of their underlings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I assumed was going to happen, but we only really see them do the, like, 50 murders.
Yeah.
The 50 firehouse burning down of all of the scout troops.
Yep.
Including Carmelitas.
Yep.
Her parents are dead. The parents didn't deserve it. Carmelita deserves more than she got. Because she also doesn't know they're dead.
Nope.
But, where was I going? And then, so that all happens. And then we don't really see them until the penultimate peril again, when I'm like, they're two mysterious people that we can't see. I wonder who they could be.
Yeah. They are power players, but it is true that the villainy never really shifts from Count Olaf. And honestly, I think that makes sense. I feel like, you know, they kind of represent in a lot of ways the kind of villainy that's in the background, but never really, like, the people, when we confront, like, problems in our lives, it's not necessarily a one person. It's kind of like this, like, system that makes things bad, and I feel like the villains are kind of like that. They're players, and they're heavily involved, and the fact that they're part of the justice system is kind of akin to that.
Yes.
But, like, they're not, like, the big bad that needs to be confronted or vanquished, because, like...
How can you?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't really kill off the existential nature of tragedy. So, in that sense, they're kind of more just figures in the shadows that are puppeteers but are never truly confronted. And yeah, I do think it is definitely a different take on how villains are typically shown in media, especially media for kids. But that's an interesting point that you bring up.
Yeah.
I like their designs a lot. I don't know how I envisioned them in my head when I was reading the books as a kid. I kind of just figured them as, like, shadowy figures. Yeah. But I think the way they're designed was really good. And
also, I think they were related, the two actors.
Oh yeah, they might have.
Yeah, I think I don't remember what their names were, but I think I saw them share a last name. So either that or they're married.
Yeah, I mean, either way, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, have them be very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes more sense if they are siblings to make them more
like similar.
Yeah. Yeah, in appearance wise. There were the okay, hold on. I'm missing a book.
Sure.
Okay, because there was The Slippery Slope.
Yes.
And then there was the Submarine. The Grim Grotto. And then we had The Penultimate Peril.
Yes.
And then the end. Okay.
Yeah.
We're not missing an episode.
I don't think so.
I forgot about the events at the Grim Grotto for a moment there.
No, yeah. The Grim Grotto is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, we didn't talk about the third of the Quagmire triplets.
Yep. So the last season left off with us saying there was a survivor of one of the fires. It was the real hitch is that Jacques in his report never specifies which fire there's a survivor of, but we assume it's the Baudelaire fire, but it actually was a Quagmire fire, and it was Quigley who survived. And he's a cartographer. He is one of the triplets, and he has been kind of doing his own thing for this whole time. And he meets up with the Baudelaires and helps them in their quest to save Sunny.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. Quigley is an really interesting character. In the books, he was very much just a one-off character. You see him in Slippery Slope, and he's gone in Slippery Slope, and you never see him again until the end, where you find out what happens to him. Like, the rest of the time, you just don't know what. Oh, well, he does make it a slight appearance. He actually,
He's still the one that rescues the Sugar Bowl in the Grim Grotto?
Yes, he is, but you don't know that until the end.
Oh, okay.
You never find out about that until the end. So, the real thing is that, excuse me. The real thing is that, Quigley, what was I trying to say? I forget.
I believe in you. You got it.
Oh my god. Something about Quigley. What was it? Like, it was related to the... I forget.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah, hopefully I remember.
We'll come back to it.
I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
There's...
I do kind of enjoy how the villains prefer Esme over.
Yeah.
Over Olaf.
They do a
so
lot
they did help with the submarine, but
yes.
then again, that's the only other thing they were responsible for.
Yeah.
Also, they gave them the children as rowers.
Yes. They are. Yep.
And then we also have Fiona from the boat, and then
yep.
the revelation that the Hook-handed man is in fact her brother.
Yep, he is her brother. Yeah, the Hook-handed man. I think the revelation that he is related to her comes right out of nowhere in the books. But I think in the show they definitely set it up a little bit more. Like, they had the Hook-handed man be, at least, especially from the beginning, probably the more redeemable hench person. Like, he did the awful things, but he did at least, he had like a bond with Sunny.
Yeah.
He respected her and cared about her, really.
Yeah.
And he was the only hench person, and pretty much the only other person aside from the Bullers who actually understood Sunny. So it automatically kind of shows to us that he is a little bit more humanized. And then he even mentions in Cowboy Carnival, like, a sister. I wonder how my sister's doing. So, like, he does mention the as family. So they do kind of hint to it a little bit more directly, but yeah. You don't really know until the last one.
Yeah. There's one thing I just remembered. We're discussing family and the leaving of hench people.
Yeah.
The two white-faced women.
Yes.
They realize that they are orphans and that their parents also died in a fire when the two people with hair and no hair come up and talk about setting more fires.
Yes.
And the thing I got to thinking about when I was trying to think of theories of what could happen.
Yeah.
I just stumbled upon this thought. This is also including not only the two white-faced women, but also all the Snow Scouts.
Yes.
And this would include Carmelita too.
Yeah.
Were all of their parents involved in VFD? And that's the biggest sticking point, because they're mad at Olaf for being so focused on the Baudelaire fortune.
Yes.
When Olaf also rightly has very good reason to just want pure revenge.
Right.
But he does have this huge obsession about getting the fortune on top of the revenging.
Yes.
But his two mentors belittle him for it.
Yes.
But they do the same thing, but on a grander scale, and like they are getting the money out of it. It sounds like, but what reason would they have to target them, if not for the fact that they also are enacting their revenge or cleaning out the remains of the opposite side of the schism?
I mean that's one of the great mysteries that the books and the Netflix adaptation never really answer. And I don't know if we necessarily need to know the answer to that question. But I mean, I think your theory holds water, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if all the details of the schism are really like things we know. So, who knows? And I mean, it's also possible that they just kind of want to watch the world burn, and that's all there is to it. And you know, they just So they are very
I thought they were big. Those two were more involved in the schism itself, but they're not.
Not really. I mean, they are, but like the schism.
But they were already. I mean, from the scene we see, we already know there's already tensions.
Yes.
And there's already spies within the organization that they're aware of. It's just this schism allowed that to just
like happen.
Open.
Yes.
Just like a fault line, just like boom.
Yes, and now everyone's fighting each other.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, like I said, I thought those two would have been a bigger part of the schism, but it's entirely the Snickets and it's entirely the whole schism basically revolves around the Snickets, the Baudelaires, and Olaf and Esme.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's all it involves, pretty much. Though, the Hook Handyman is involved tangentially yet directly, because the whole thing with the Sugar Bowl is the fact that it's a cure for the mycelium.
Medusoid mycelium, yeah.
The poisonous mushroom in the Grim Grotto.
Yeah.
It has a different name, but I forget what the full name is.
The Medusoid mycelium.
No, the grotto itself.
Oh, and whistle aquatics.
But there was a different name for the grotto. It was a longer name for the grotto itself. It wasn't the Grim Grotto.
I don't remember.
I remember that specifically because like that's just a word that's longer than 4 letters.
Yeah.
Anyway, that Hook Handyman specifically burned down that plant because the mycelium was too dangerous to have a thing, and the Sugar Bowl was important because it was not only a cure but a goddamn just counter.
Yes, it was an antidote
to the poison itself. Mm-hmm. So actually, thought if Olaf did drop the poison in the hotel, would Esme be alive? Because it's commented that the antidote is bitter because they bite the apple and it's bitter. Mm-hmm. And she comments that the sugar is bitter, so the sugar that they were using already had the compound that was the antidote. Do you think that the antidote had that long of a lasting effect, or would you have to take repeated antidotes?
I think they said that it gave you immunity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So yeah, she probably wouldn't have died from the Medusoid mycelium if she had used it for poison. So.
And
what?
And that's why Kit specifically refuses. Kit specifically Kit.
Yeah, Kit refuses.
Kit specifically refuses to take the sugar to the sugar.
Right.
And that's why she is able to suffer and die in this.
Yep.
Because if she had taken it, she would have been fine.
Yep.
Damn it! Damn it! This could have been happier if she just had some sugar.
Well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. In this story, there's a lot of. I mean, that's one of the great things about this series is that they leave a lot of like evidence and things that you can kind of follow along with it and kind of figure things out before they happen, which is great. Mm-hmm. It really encourages you to look into things, which is kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
So, who's your favorite character? So talking about characters. Now that the whole series is over, who's your favorite character? Like, which character do you think is like the star of the MVP for you?
I actually might say Lemony.
Lemony?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because he is more than a narrator. He is a character that's been directly involved with the events.
Yep.
And he just wants to make sure he can at least tell this tale that he could have helped prevent.
Yeah.
But unfortunately was not able to.
Yeah.
And I especially with all the literary references and notations stuff that he makes. It makes it very interesting, and like honestly, him being there makes half the series what it is.
It really does.
So if you took Lemony Snicket out of the picture entirely, this would be an entirely different series.
Which is really, I'm glad you mentioned that, because like, I'll bring back the movie that happened. I don't know, I think I've talked about the movie adaptation that happened like back in 2007, 2006 or something. Do you remember that?
I remember it being a thing. I remember also I didn't want to watch it because like, oh no, this is going to be scary.
I mean, like, it's not, that movie wasn't scary, it was just bad. Basically,
well, I was scared by the title.
I mean, like,
I was a coward when I was a child.
It's okay. It's okay. We all start somewhere. But in the movie adaptation, the one that stars Jim Carrey as Count Olaf back when Jim Carrey was the hotness. They do have Lemony Snicket pretty much absent for the whole movie. Like, he's there. He is a narrator, and he instead of him being an actual character that's present throughout the entire story, he's in shadow. He's in an attic typing it. He's played by Jude Law, but he's in the shadows, and he starts the story, and I think he does interject a couple times, but not to the extent that he does in this adaptation. Mm-hmm. He only interjects really in the beginning and the end. He's largely absent from most of the book, for most of the movie adaptation, which I think to me is one of the big no-nos of the adaptation when it comes to the adaptation, because Lemony Snicket, again, is such a character in the book. Him telling this story is a large part of how the book works. And his lens on everything is very much its character. Mm-hmm. And the way because he is a character in the story. So, and I'd say he's probably one of the major characters in the story. So, cutting him out kind of misses the point in a lot of ways. So I think the fact that this adaptation keeps him in and keeps him a major figure is very important and a large part of how it works. Yeah. And it works as well as it does.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's especially easy to say because it's especially hard to like a bunch of the characters because as Sonny and Klaus say, Violet and Klaus say, they've told their story over and over and over and over, and nearly every time they're not believed. Mm-hmm. There's so many people that are so ignorant and so either self-absorbed or not caring or not understanding that Olaf is also right that those people were also more of a help to him than any of his associate and any of his other hench people or associates.
Right, yeah.
Because they were responsible for allowing him to get as close as he did in all of those cases.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I think that's really the thing that makes this book or this series so interesting to me as a kid, especially as a kid. Like, as a kid, I would read this story and, like, I would tell people what it was about, and they would look at me like, that sounds awful. Why are you as a kid reading that? So it kind of felt like a dirty little secret that I was reading. And I think what's great about this series is that it really does treat the sort of really, like, confusing and dark sides of being a child and how that feels and how it can feel. And it touches on the kind of confusion and frustration that children have. And in a way that I think a lot of books and a lot of media don't really acknowledge. Like, I think a lot of media aimed at kids does try and, like, capture the feeling of a child, but I don't think it doesn't come at it from this perspective. And I think that's kind of what makes it valuable, is that it recognizes that a lot of childhood is trying to tell adults how you feel and then being brushed off because you're a child, or feeling like you're voiceless in a world that is confusing. It doesn't make sense. And I think that that's really, to me, the big thing that I take away from this book is that it sort of emotionally gives people the ability to be like, it sort of gives a catharsis for the feeling of being helpless in a world that you don't understand. And I really admire the books for that. I really admire how it's willing to sort of like really like tackle that feeling in a way that is approachable. Yeah. So, yeah. I have a lot of really big thoughts about these books.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's...
Watch out for my 7-part series coming to YouTube this summer. Where I dissect every book in this series. No, I probably wouldn't do that. But...
I mean, it would have to be at least 13 parts.
Of course. 14. I have to make it my 14-part series coming to YouTube this summer. Dissecting Zero to Fortune events.
I'm trying to think of another title that would be about as witty as The Whole Plate. But I can't think of
I'm making a direct parody of Lindsay Ellis's The Whole Plate. Watch. Yeah. I don't know if I would do that, but yeah.
But no, yeah, I completely agree, and it's also
who could it be at this hour? The 14-part series coming to YouTube this summer, dissecting literary criticism using Series of Unfortunate Events as my template. Yeah. Totally not ripping off any other
absolutely not
YouTuber.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely. That's not what's happening right now.
Lindsay Ellis does great work, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Please. Check her out. Sub to Lindsay Ellis. hashtag sub to Lindsay Ellis. She's great. Check her out.
Yep. But back to the struggles of the kids coming to accept the world, as and understanding the world as it is. Yeah. And that's a big thing that was like being at the forefront of the discussion with the penultimate peril on the trial. Yeah. Was it's not a black and white situation. No one's clear of fault or wrongdoing, including Klaus, Sunny, and Violet. Yeah. Especially because, like, they were doing it to save themselves because they got stuck in bad situations. Right. But they had to do bad things to undo that. And, I mean, we saw that struggle. We did see those struggles. Yeah. When they were doing it. But, again, they were doing it because they thought it was the right thing. To an extent, and that's pretty much what everyone was doing at the series. Like, Olaf thought he was, well, maybe he didn't necessarily think he was doing the right thing, but he realized the cynical truth of not everyone's perfect. It's not perfectly good or evil. Right. He has done good things in the past, but what's the point if the world is so cruel? Right. Yeah. And that's a good thing to have ready for the world, because that's something I've been realizing. It's not good. Good things happen to bad people. Bad things happen to good people. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's the worst people can also do good. The best people can also do bad.
Yeah, and I like I said, I think that's also one of the things that I really liked about these books. Like, I don't think you'd find many other children's books that have your main characters set fires, steal from people, potentially kill people, or contemplate killing people, or at least causing harm to them. Like, fiddling with things they might not understand, joining suspicious organizations, spying on people, and so on and so forth. Like, obviously, I don't think there are, like, characters in children's media that do bad things. Like, Junie B. Jones is a well-known big mouth who, like, sneaks and spies on people, but most of the bad things she does are very childish, you know, like, she's looking at someone she isn't supposed to, she says something she probably should have kept to herself, she is annoyed and bratty, like, but those aren't really, like, morally questionable things. Yeah. What the Bowlers do, they do some morally questionable things, and I think it to me, as a young child, and even going into middle school reading these books, I think reading these books really opened my mind to sort of the possibilities of, like, ambiguous morality in a way that many other books series that exist in the children's media landscape don't. And that's not to say that I think the only other characters that I've encountered in children's media that have the kind of moral ambiguity that the Baudelaires have is probably George Beard and Harold Hutchins from Captain Underpants. But that's only because they're pranksters who are positioned as enemies of, like, the schools and of adults at large, kind of. Like their entire thing is they kind of just prank people. And they even prank their own classmates, all for a laugh. And they objectively, like, do annoying things that people, if it happened to you, probably you wouldn't like. So in that way, those kids, that book kind of has your main protagonists as pranksters who would probably also prank you just for the lulz, you know. But at the same time, like, you know, their pranks aren't harming anyone. Yeah. Really. And that pranksterness kind of serves as sort of an outlet for kids who are, you know, the delinquents, the class clowns, the people who can't sit still in class, you know. Like, it's kind of like a wish fulfillment fantasy for those kinds of kids who otherwise aren't like the perfect student model and that kind of stuff. And I mean, that makes sense because Dav Pilkey, the author of those books, was also a goof off who wasn't very good in school, and so that kind of is a fantasy that is realized from his own experiences. But I know this is a tangent, but the only reason why I'm bringing it up is because that's the only series that I can think of where the main characters are kind of seen as, like, not upstanding role models, if you will. George Beard and Harold Hutchins aren't role models. They're goofy kids. Yeah. And Baudelaires, to some extent, aren't really role models either. I mean, they're, I would say, probably positioned as more righteous than the characters I've mentioned in Captain Underpants, but, like, they do some things that are morally questionable. They trick people, they lie, they steal, they commit arson, you know what I mean? Like, they do things, they run away from the law, you know? Obviously, I don't think anyone reading these books would say that they do those things for the wrong reason, and they obviously have, like, they obviously think about it, and they obviously have regrets about doing all those things, but they still do them. And, you know, some children's media would not have their characters do that. They would absolutely always have their characters follow the law or never do anything too bad, you know what I mean? So I think creating this story that allows these kids to have these, like, shades of gray is, I think, really great, and one of the reasons why, again, I really like them as a kid. I think it gives them dimensions in ways that maybe some other kids' material really doesn't. So, and that's, like I said, that's not to say that the kids' material that does do that is bad. You know, like, I read Magic Treehouse when I was a kid, and I love those books, and I still like those books. Those books are really great, but they're not doing the same things that this book is doing, and I really do appreciate what Series of Unfortunate Events has been doing for source media. So, yeah, that's my long take again. I could talk about this forever. Okay. Oh, yeah. But, so let me just think it is your favorite character. Yeah.
Who's yours?
Oh, boy. I don't know. I think Kit Snicket's my favorite. I really admire her tenacity. I think she's really great. And I do think she's a very, like, dimensional character, too. And it's really amazing to me because her dimensionality, she only appears, the first time we meet her in person is actually in The Penultimate Peril. There's only really 2 books in which we really know who she is and we find out more about her. But even in those 2 books, we find so much about her. We learn about who she is. We see her dimensionalities. We find out that she and Count Olaf were, like, lovers, like, right at the end when she dies. Like, we most of the backstory that we learn prior to that, we don't know in the books. In the books, we only find out that they were lovers right at the very end. And even that moment, like, brings dimensionality and adds those flavors that you wouldn't really think about. And I think that you know, you think, wow, how could Kit love someone who's so wicked? And it kind of, like, again, just that moment, like, really brings in those dimensionalities. And she's a really cool woman, and I really like her as a character. I think she's great. Mm-hmm. She's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of all of the nonsense that happened.
All the nonsense. There's a lot that happens. Was there any least favorite character? Least favorite character. Poe. Yes, Poe. Mr. Poe is the worst. He is like.
He was 90% of Olaf's help.
He really was. He was the worst. He is the embodiment of everything that's wrong with this series in the sense of the adults in the room. And yeah, he's just the absolute worst. He's the worst character. Mm-hmm. I hate him more than I hate Count Olaf, because he's the kind of character who, like, was in a position to really help the Dumbledore's lives, and he just didn't.
Yeah.
He could have. He's like, you know, he's a person in position of power who doesn't utilize that power in any way that's helpful. And yeah.
Yeah.
He just sucks.
He does.
Mr. Poe sucks.
And he even got more screen time in this.
He did.
To be even more of a suckhole.
He did. In the books, he disappears from the Vile Village until we see him again briefly in the Grim Grotto. I'm not even sure he comes back. I'm pretty sure we don't know what happened. I'm pretty sure after Grim Grotto, after the bullies leave him in the dust, we don't see him again. I don't even think he comes up for the trial. Mm-hmm. He might have come up in the trial, but it was very brief. It was a very brief cameo. So the only book in this episode, the only episode in which he doesn't show up is in the end.
Yeah.
Which, thank God.
Yes. Speaking of the end, I really want to talk about the end.
Yeah, the end is really one of my favorite parts of the whole book. Mostly because it's so ballsy. It's so ballsy for a kid's show. Oh my god. But I'll let you talk. I could talk all about this ending.
Well, I mean, the first thing to discuss. Okay, well, so quick question first. Yeah. Was the religious imagery that was present in this episode present in the book?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all there.
So that makes it okay. So that makes it more interesting when in the show it's revealed that Ishmael was basically the founder of VFD, which is not a thing in the book. Which, holy crap, again makes all of that.
It's so ballsy.
So much more with this whole biblical imagery with the snake and the apple.
Yeah.
And that not only is, but and with the Adam and Eve creation story, like when I saw the tree, I was like, oh my god, how much of this is going to be the creation story? Because they have to bite the fruit that the snake gives them. Literally, there is a snake that gives them an apple, and they eat it, and it's what saves their lives.
Yes.
With Ishmael wanting, after the Bowler parents left, he wanted to keep everyone ignorant. He wanted to keep them. He didn't want them to have the knowledge or the memories, because he was giving them drinks that were making their memories fuzzy.
Yeah.
Of the other people.
Yeah.
He didn't want that because he didn't want ideas. He didn't want the ructions and the schisms to fold that ideas unfortunately create. But that is what they are given. They are given the knowledge. Yeah. And that is what saves them.
Yeah. It is a complete and utter subversion of the Genesis creation story, and I am so here for it. I feel like as a kid reading this, I didn't really understand. Like, I obviously knew the story of Genesis as a child, but it only took, like, me rereading it to really be like, oh my god, and get it. Like, I still am at awe, right? Like, making a story about a bunch of kids who do morally questionable things with horrible things that happen to them over and over and over again with no real reprieve is already ballsy enough. But then Your entire last book is basically a stealth subversion of one of the most popular creation myths of all time. For a major religion that, like, your audience is probably from. Like, holy crap.
Hey, honestly,
that takes some steel balls.
I mean, admittedly, with that, I'm honestly surprised that when the Series of Unfortunate Events book came out, I didn't get, our school didn't recommend us to not go see it.
I mean,
like they did with the Golden Compass.
Well, yeah, they did that for the Golden Compass, but, like, the Golden Compass is way more explicit about its, like, hatred fair. Of religion, to be honest.
That's fair.
Like, yes, this is definitely a complete subversion of the Genesis story, but it's not.
But, you know, the church. I'm just saying.
Like, I don't think it's not condemning the church.
No,
really.
No,
it's just
not.
It's just flipping that familiar story on its head. And, like, the thing that. I mean, the other thing that's really interesting about this ending is that some context. Daniel Handler, the author of the book, not Lemony Snicket. I'm sorry to break the illusion, but he's not actually. Lemony Snicket's a character. He's not actually the author.
Yeah.
It's a pseudonym for Daniel Handler, who is the executive producer, and he's also the author of these books. He is Jewish. And so he's Jewish. The Baudelaire children are Jewish. They're not, like, you could watch this whole series or read the whole books and not realize that they're Jewish because it's not really a thing that comes up for them. But that's also why when Klaus and Sonny and Lila are breaking out of prison, they have, like, the Mazel Tov thing because the 13th birthday of a child in the Jewish tradition is their bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. So Klaus is turning 13, he's becoming an adult, and they kind of have that. That's a reference. But anyway, he's Jewish. The Baudelaire orphans are considered Jewish, or he thinks of them as Jewish. And I don't think Daniel Handler practices Judaism, or is I don't think he, like, considers himself, like, actually Jewish. He's more like he considers himself Jewish culturally. So an agnostic Jew, I think, is the term I've heard for that. Yeah, so I think that's how he identifies himself. But I do think it's important and interesting that he's Jewish, because I think this is the most. It makes sense because, you know, the creation in Genesis, in the story of Adam and Eve, is part of Jewish
tradition as well.
Jewish. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really, like, and what makes it even better, the one image that I was kind of sad they didn't show, and it might have been just because it would have been hard to have it happen in the show, but like, Ishmael doesn't ever walk. He always sits. And it's because he's pretending to be, like, he pretends that his feet have been, like he's lame or something and he can't walk. And so then when the Baudelaires see that his footprints are on the sand, they're like, "Oh, what? He can't walk. He said he can't walk, but there are footprints. How is that possible?" Oh, he's lying. But in the book, the sheep on the island, he is pulled by them, and he sits on the throne. He's pulled by the sheep. Which is another, oh my god, imagery, because in Judeo-Christian tradition, the followers of God are compared to lamb, and the God and Jesus are compared to be shepherds who lead the lambs and stuff. And that's also why in the show, Ishmael has a shepherd's crook as his walking stick. Yeah. So
wait a minute. Isn't there a thing in Judeo in the law that you can't eat raw fish?
Yeah.
That's the thing, and that's the only thing they eat on this island is raw fish.
It's so ballsy and deep. You can pick this apart for days. There's so much imagery in it. There's so much. So much of it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so, yeah, and it's amazing, because, like, and again, what makes this book so interesting is that, in the end, that's really the whole point of it. The real enemy of this entire series isn't Count Olaf. It's not the man with with no hair but beard and the woman with no beard but hair, it's ignorance is the real enemy. All of the characters who made the Baudelaires' lives worse or didn't really help did it because they didn't believe the Baudelaires when they were given information, or they didn't seek the knowledge for themselves. They were ignorant. And in the end, knowledge is what this book says frees you from the things, or helps you fight the things that scare you and hurt you. And the more you close yourself off from the things that scare you, the more dangerous you get. Because when danger does come, if you don't know how to approach it, then you're dead or you're lost. So that's why I love this book so much, because it compacts the themes of that been running through the entire story into this one really great like way of just like distilling it. And it's great. And to be honest, the end was never really my favorite book in the whole series, I don't think. When I was reading it as a kid, I feel like I liked like the Grim Grotto a little more, or the Penultimate Peril a little more, because it had more action, more references, more fun. But I think as an adult, I think the end I really appreciate for its symbolism and its themes, and the way it just absolutely like flips things on its head, and the way it ends, and the way it sort of I feel like this story is very complete and ends very succinctly in a way that a lot of books don't, or a lot of books mix the mark on. Yeah. And I feel like whenever people talk about like story conclusions and what feels like a good story ending, I feel like this one's really good, because it shows that like you don't need story endings aren't necessarily about finding out everything that happens. I think good endings for any story end at a place that makes sense within the rest of the narrative. And I think that emotionally and thematically, this end point makes so much sense. Because, yeah. It's just a great ending, and I love it. I will say, the Netflix ending does end a lot happier on a lighter tone than the book ending. In the books, a lot more characters are assumed to have died, and a lot more, and I think there's a lot more mystery in it, but I think considering the tone that the Netflix adaptation decided to take from the beginning, the happier ending kind of fits. So I don't blame I'm not like, how dare the Netflix ending not be a total downer. Like, it works with the rest of the narrative, so I'm fine with it. And it still does have a very vague ending. You know, you don't know what happens to the Baudelaires. You don't know if they're alive. And even though Beatrice meets up with Lemony at the end, you don't know, like, she could have bad news for him. Right? We don't know what happens to the Quagmires. They might never meet. They might have. We don't know what happened to Fiona and Fernand
after finding their stepfather.
Like,
do they run into each other again or not?
They could have died, you know. So we'll never know, and that's fine. We don't need to know, I think. And I think that's kind of the great thing about this series, is that it kind of it sort of helps me and helps children realize that, like, there are a lot of mysteries in life that you'll never know the answers to, but that's okay. As long as you have people that you love and you care about, then things will be all right. Yeah. So, yeah. It's so good. Okay.
It is. Yeah. It surely is.
Yeah. What?
I'm trying to think of other things to say, but like most of it has been summed up pretty much.
Yeah.
Honestly. One thing I will say. I like at the end they showed Olaf had humanity.
Yeah.
But did not redeem him.
Yeah.
Like, the Baudelaires do feel bad when he passes, because at the beginning of the end they were ready to throw him overboard. Well, not ready, but like
they were contemplating
it. But at the end he is used. He helps save Kit. And at the very least, they give him the dignity of a proper burial. They probably will never talk about him in good terms. They will never forget the horrible things that they had done to him.
Or that he
And he even even there's a conversation between Olaf and Kit that's like, Kit's like, do you think one good act's gonna undo all of your wickedness? And he says, I never apologized. He doesn't even think he deserves redemption.
Yeah.
Or forgiveness. It's just the thing he thought he wanted to do.
Yeah.
That was the thing he should do. Because, like I said before, even though Olaf acknowledges what he does is wrong, it is the thing he wants to do. Mm-hmm.
And like he said, it feels like the only thing he knows how to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's, a book like this, I think Count Olaf is also one of my favorite characters because you hate him, you don't like him, he's not good as a person. Yeah. He's awful, but in the end of the day, you kind of get the feeling that he also is capable of so much more, but it just never fell in the right place for him. Yeah. And I mean, he didn't deserve to have his parents die or be killed. He's not at fault for what his and we never do find out why they killed his father. Like, we assume it's because he did something bad, but like we never.
Well, I assumed from the setup that it was an accidental toss.
Oh yeah, it probably was an accident too. Yeah. And like, I mean, he didn't like.
But we don't know why Olaf left his father, and what kind of regrets he has, because if he's so sad, so hurt by his father's death, there was stuff going on in the background. Right. Because we saw his father making a speech about, like, I know my son's out there, Olaf, just know I love you. Yeah. And Olaf is like, ugh.
Right, yeah.
See the whole thing. Yeah. But there's true sadness in him when
his father dies.
He just dead.
Yeah, and like again, you get the sense that Olaf, probably could have been a good person had things been different. And he's
or at least a better person, because even at that point in time, admittedly, he seemed a bit curmudgeon-y.
I mean, yeah, I don't think he was ever like a stand-up gentleman that fell to the dark side.
No, his attitude. His attitude did not help when all of this was going on. No. Because the Baudelaires could have fallen in the same path if they had a different outlook on life, a different attitude, or whatever. Yeah. But they were fortunate enough to have that good attitude. Yeah. That wanted them to persevere and live and thrive.
Right. And honestly, I feel like this is the kind of... okay, I hate to bring Voltron back into everything, but I'm going to do it because I have to. But this is kind of like when we talk about in Voltron how, like, Lotor should have been redeemed. If they didn't... this is how I feel like you do a death, or you deal with a character who is tragic, but also not redeemed. You know what I mean? Like, how you can give a villain humanity and shades without quite redeeming them. And... yeah, I wish Voltron had taken some notes, because this would have been... how much better would that have been if, like, Lotor's death had been treated the same way Olaf had been treated? It would have been way better. Yep. Is my point. Yep. I know, like I said, I know for those of you who, like, don't care about Voltron, you're like, why are you bringing it back? And I'm like...
well, if you're also here, we can also just make a comparison to... this was a good parallel to Dinobot's death.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But
because we still need... because now we can check off the Transformers reference for the episode.
That
because
every episode must have.
Yeah, that every episode must have.
They are required to.
Like, Dinobot... by law. Like, I mean, like, Dinobot did more to rectify...
yeah, he was very more... done. He was much more redeemed.
He had more... he had standards, which is why he left Megatron in the first place. And, right. Like, he did falter, and then... yeah. Then was able to, like, redeem himself, like... but even then, he still, like, tell the story, ill deeds along with the good, like Hamlet, which also why I went back to Dinobot, because my mind actually jumped to Hamlet first. Right. Of an instance of a tragic hero.
Right. And, like, but... and yeah, I guess, because, like, the thing about Count Olaf is at the end of it, you just come away feeling that he was kind of tragic. Like, obviously, he's still a villain, and he's still not a good person, but you also recognize that, like, you know, people aren't born evil. They're made that way. And in like all of that you kind of get just in those last moments, and Neil Patrick Harris killed it.
Absolutely.
He so killed it.
Absolutely.
As Count Olaf, and he was able to sort of get that depth across, which I think was really what you needed in those moments. And yeah, you get the feeling of this guy who, and like you also get the feeling that all Count Olaf really wanted was just someone who kind of loved him for who he was.
Yeah.
You know, parental figures who let him down. He says, like, every parental figure I've ever had let me down or was dead. And you kind of feel like he's just someone who was trying to make sense of a world who was confused. And again, that's kind of the whole theme of the world, trying to make sense of a world that's too big for you to understand and you can't wrap your head around it. Some people lash out at the world and others try and live in it. And that's really what sets the Baudelaires apart from Count Olaf.
Yeah.
They try and make do with what they have, and Count Olaf flashes out and wants to burn it all because that's the only way he can deal with it.
Yeah.
So, this book has so many layers. It's so good.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So, any other things? I think we're touching on a lot of the things I wanted to talk about. Oh, last thing I wanted to talk about. Beatrice Baudelaire and Lemony meeting up. That part, so... In
Beatrice
the books,
Baudelaire the second.
Yeah, in the books, Lemony is still really the narrator, and in the end, he's also the narrator too. But he knows what happens to everyone. Like in the books, he knows his sister died. In the books, he knows where the Baudelaires ended up. They ended up on that island.
Yeah.
But in the Netflix adaptation, he says he doesn't know what happens, and that's when I was watching it initially, I was really confused because I was like, does she not die? Like, what happens? Like, why doesn't he know? But it was really just to set up the device of the Beatrice Baudelaire II and him meeting. And he doesn't actually tell the Baudelaire story. For him, the Baudelaire story ends when they leave. And the rest of what happens in the end is something only we know, the audience, which I thought was a really interesting take. And the stuff about Beatrice Baudelaire II, that never showed up in the books, really. We don't know. We know she exists. We know she was born and that the Baudelaires sailed off with her back into the world, but we never know what happens to her or them until the end. But we know, the whole bit of them meeting is actually a reference to the Beatrice letters, which was a supplementary material that was released like right before the last book was published officially. So the Beatrice letters was like correspondence from Beatrice to Lemony Snicket, both the original Beatrice and the child Beatrice, like both corresponding to Lemony Snicket. And in the on the child's side, Beatrice is sending letters to Lemony saying, "Hey, I want to meet you. I have things to talk about. I want to try and find her parents, but the Baudelaires.
Yeah.
Her siblings, I guess she considers them. So, because she doesn't know at that time where they are.
Yeah.
And that was done in the lead up to, in the lead up to the end. And so that, I guess, was brought in to the fold for, the last part of it. And I think that was a good way to do it.
Yeah.
I was expecting that they were going to show that part, because I knew about that, even though it wasn't in the books. I obviously read everything about these series when I was younger, so, like, I read the Beatrice letters, so I know about it. I thought it was interesting that they chose to do that. And, like, who knows if Lemony will ever find out what happened to his sister. Yeah. I'm assuming Beatrice will tell him what happens, but...
Yeah.
I thought it was a really interesting way to do it. And I was also really curious. I thought that at first they were going to just not have Lemony in the last book at all, which I thought would be really weird. But
yeah, that's what I was wondering too, honestly.
But they didn't have. They still had him in there, which I thought was a good choice too, because he still is a good narrator, and you got to have the narrator's part in that. And then there was also, what else was there that the Great Unknown. So the Great Unknown in the books, you don't quite know what it is. You have no idea. It could be a sub, it could be a monster. It's just a question mark. You don't know. Mm-hmm. And in fact, at the end of the book, pretty much every character that was near the ocean, the Quagmires, Hector, Fiona, Ferdinand, and Captain Wittersheens, they all get taken in by the Great Unknown in the end. And you're not sure if since we don't know who the Great Unknown is, you don't know if they were hurt, you don't know if they were helped, if they were saved, if they were not saved, if they're safe, if they're not safe, you have no idea. You just know that they were taken in. Mm-hmm. And presumably you never see them again. Mm-hmm. In this book, in the later books, there's some prequel series that was written. I haven't read them, but they're a prequel series to the series before it was written. That talks about Lemony Snicket's life in VFD, mm-hmm. and one of the books concerns the Great Unknown, and Lemony Snicket wrote about it, and it's revealed that it was a monster sea creature thing, and basically the Great Unknown is in a lot of ways a metaphor for death, or this idea of like anytime someone like sort of leaves your life, what happens to them? You don't know. Mm-hmm. So I guess in a lot of ways in the original books, the characters are then implied to have died, and like you never see them again. Whereas in this version, I guess because they made the monster element more explicit, they decided to then have the fates of. They couldn't have the Great Unknown take those characters, because mm-hmm. then it would have been crystal clear, oh, they died, instead of, oh, we don't know what happened. So that to me was an interesting change, but it did make sense to have them live, I guess, but mm-hmm. ultimately, like, who knows what happens. Yeah. So yeah, this is another thing that I thought was interesting, the Great Unknown and how they treated the Great Unknown. Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Yeah. So, I don't know. Do you want to mention anything else? Or do you think we talked about everything?
I'm trying to make sure I didn't forget about anything.
It's a lot. This series has a lot in it. There's a lot to dig in.
No, yeah. But
what was your favorite literary reference?
You asked me this, and I made a comment.
You did.
Today about that's my favorite literary reference, and now I forget what it was.
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, I'll go ahead and just be like the whole Adam and Eve.
I mean, yeah, the whole Genesis, like I said, subversive as hell and also ballsy as hell mm-hmm. for a kid's book. It's just like, oh god, like it could have.
Oh wait, I remember.
Oh yeah,
the blind leading the blind.
Oh yeah,
Isn't that also a religious illusion?
I don't know. Maybe.
I thought that was a thing from the Bible.
It might be.
Yeah, I could be wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. But yeah, I remember that, especially since now with Poe being there. Poe was the leader of the blind, leading the blind.
Yep.
And it was his blindness that led us all the way here.
Yep.
And yeah.
Also, okay, there was one reference that I was hoping they would recreate in the series, but I don't think they did it. So, in The Slippery Slope, mm-hmm. Sunny is talking, and she's using her little language, and she says the words, Busheni, which translates to, you're a vile, horrible man who is scheming, or whatever, to Akanolov.
Yeah.
Busheni is an anagram of Bush Cheney. Because this was written, the books were written, right, I think, like, right near when the Bush was being reelected for president. So in case you're wondering what Daniel Handler's political leanings are, there you go.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was hoping they would do something like that. In this, they don't. which is a little upsetting to me.
At this point, Sunny actually starts using the actual words instead of
she actually
her made up language, even though people still don't understand her clearly.
Yeah, which makes sense. She's the actress for Sunny was like a toddler, so it makes sense that she actually can speak.
Yeah. And I remembered something else I wanted to say about Slippery Soap, but now I forget when you said that.
That's fine.
I think it was about Slippery Soap, maybe, or not.
But, like, I was so hoping. Oh, there was the Rosebud, and then you laughed.
Oh, yeah, the Rosebud.
Rosebud sled.
Yeah.
Sunny being badass. As badass as a baby can be, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
She was definitely a badass baby.
Yep.
No, yeah. So much good stuff.
Yeah.
Despite all of the horrible, unfortunate events.
Yep.
But that is life, and that's the point of the book.
Yep.
So, it does its job. It did its job.
Yep.
It did what it set out to do, and it was good. But I think that's all we got.
Okay. Any onions? Any negatives?
Mr. Poe.
Just him.
Yeah.
Just no.
And I think
out.
I genuinely think I expressed my greatest onion is with the two with the hair and the beard.
Yeah.
They felt like it was important for Olaf's part of his story.
Yes.
But with how they were presented and how they were used, I expected them to be used differently and the story to take a turn with them.
Right.
But it doesn't. So it's like this weird bump, I'll say. Like, it's still a part of it. Right. But, like, it does something that you're not... It feel like you're going... Yeah.
I get it.
So, like, there's the road, and there's a bump, and you think after you get over the bump, it's going to go... It's going to go this way, but it actually goes the other way. And, like, you kind of don't have to deal... The bump's not as...
Yeah, no, I got you. I get what you're trying to say.
I'm trying to do a metaphor here, but I don't think I'm as good as the man Lemony Snicket is.
You're fine. You're fine.
But
yeah, I think my biggest onion, at least in terms of the adaptation, is the whole slippery slope with Quigley and his mask. In the books, that was a lot more clever because since the Butler orphans are running from the law, they decide to disguise themselves as Snow Scouts. So they kind of slip in and they put on masks, and all the Snow Scouts are wearing masks. So when you meet up with Quigley, you don't think, oh, he's hiding his face because he's a character we would recognize immediately if he took his face mask off. It's, oh, he's doing that because everyone else is, and he's trying to blend in. So... They at least disguise it. They disguise the fact that it's a character you would recognize a little bit better in the book, I feel like, than they did here, where he's just sore thumb because he's the only person who has his face covered. Yeah. So, yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I think that's it for me.
Yeah, I think that's it for me too. Overall thoughts on this show?
That was great. You should watch it if you haven't. If you're crazy and you decide to listen to all of this and got spoiled by all the twists and turns from us talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know why you would do that.
But yeah, go see it. Like, it's long.
It is long. The episode's very long.
It's long. It's not something you can binge so easily. No. I mean, like, you can binge it. Mm-hmm. But, like, to me, if you're binging something, you're going to want it in smaller chunks. So, like, it's easier to stop when you need to stop. Though, granted, some people will just binge the entirety of a thing. Yeah. And just, like, what's sleep? Right. But, like...
It is a little longer than your average. Yeah. Like, the episode... It's probably as long as, like, a good TV show, but, like, the episodes themselves are just, like... They're, like, sometimes an hour almost, so... Yeah. So I would say, like, don't...
So, like, just make sure you've got time for it. Yeah. Like, if you try to watch the whole of Lord of the Rings, make sure you have time.
Right, yeah,
Make sure you've got the time set aside. Yeah. Yeah. Because you want to sit there through the whole thing to make sure you catch everything and remember everything. Yeah. But, yeah. But yeah, I mean, also maybe take some breaks to make sure like the information sinks in.
Basically, take care of yourself.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely recommend.
Oh wait, before we go, there's a really dirty joke. Oh my
yes!
god! Oh my god! I can't believe
he didn't stroke my. He only stroked my violin.
I mean, like I feel like that was definitely.
Oh, also, was like all of the minor gay representation references in the book or no?
The only really big one was Sir and Charles, which was in the book, but it was way less there. Like, the only hints to it was that they're partners, and Charles acts less like an actual secretary and more like a stay-at-home mom, you know?
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, is that, like, they're described as when running away from something holding hands, and they, like, live together. Like, because in the Ultimate Pair, we see them again. Instead of Mr. Poe, that's Sonny visits, it's the two
from the lumber mill.
And they're living in the same, and they're staying in the same room. So, like, it's the kind of thing that if you were paying attention, you'd notice, but if you weren't, you could easily miss it. It's not as, like, in your face as it is here.
Yeah.
And Jerome and Charles was never, they were never, like, a couple. Yeah. Babs was just...
Never a couple with the thieving teacher from
and, like, like Mrs. Babs, I don't even know if she was a thief in that original book. I feel like she was just a boring teacher. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Babs. Babs was just kind of the secretary. Yeah. And she's just kind of a bit apart. So there's more here. Yeah. In the show than there is in the books. So.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah.
Yep. So
it's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
Yep. Highly recommend it. Also, if you're into books, if you've seen the Netflix adaptation, I highly recommend the books as well. They are kids' books, so, you know, they're not going to be the kind of books for adults, but I do think there's still a lot of stuff to chew your teeth in, especially all the literary references and allusions. Yeah. Those really, I feel like those aspects of it are really what can bring adults to it. Mm-hmm. And, for that, I recommend them.
Yes, indeed.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in for this finale of the series of unfortunate events. I'm glad you didn't look away, as the show encouraged you to a lot. Yep. Alyssa, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at TheRationalDev.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at SoundJack426. But also, if you like this, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And that's all from us. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye.
Bye.